morning, everyone. Welcome to the legislature this morning. Today we take another step forwards or towards getting Alberta's fiscal house in order with the introduction of Bill 5, the Fiscal Measures and Taxation Act 2020. This bill consists of 5 proposed amendments that present a thoughtful and measured approach to achieving real savings for taxpayers while continuing to provide quality services to Albertans. Bill 5 will implement a performance-based funding model for post-secondary education. Details of this have already been outlined by my colleague, the Minister of Advanced Education. This style of funding through investment management agreements will ensure that students and taxpayers get as much value as possible for every dollar spent in the post-secondary learning system. Bill 5 also implements part of the new K-12 funding model. It enacts the requirement that school boards obtain ministerial approval before spending reserve funds. Beginning in September 2022, maximum operating reserve amounts will be set for school boards to ensure public dollars go to the classroom instead of reserves. On the subject of education, Bill 5 will strengthen how the government works with school boards to negotiate and ratify collective agreements for education. Changes to the Public Education Collective Bargaining Act will see oversight of the Act transition from education to Treasury Board and Finance. It will also give the Teachers Employer Bargaining Association Board of Directors final authority to ratify agreements and will give school boards additional representation on that board. Next, in an effort to level the playing field for businesses, we will be applying the existing 4% tourism levy on temporary accommodations to short-term rentals offered through online marketplaces. Last, Bill 5 will protect Albertans and their life insurance policies by clarifying that any side account associated with universal life insurance policy cannot be used as a standalone investment or deposit account. While each of these amendments appear to be unrelated to the other, they build on our government's promise to Albertans to be fiscally responsible, to contain spending, and get better value for their tax dollars. Thank you, and I'll take any questions.
Why are you making these changes to reserves? What concerns do you have with how they're being used right now?
The education minister, this will allow the education minister to provide very high-level oversight on the use of reserves and ensure that we're optimizing resources into classrooms. Really, again, this is a temporary measure until caps are put on operating reserves, but it will just ensure good coordination, good communication, and very high level oversight, again, to ensure that resources are getting into classrooms. That's been our priority.
But you don't have any concerns of how reserves are being used right now? This is just strictly a streamlining measure?
It's really a streamlining measure. I believe it's going to improve coordination and communication, reduce or eliminate actually surprises, and just result in a better outcome in ensuring resources again get into classrooms.
School boards are supposed to be autonomous. Isn't this kind of coming in and telling an elected body how to manage their money? What about respecting their autonomy?
Sure, and again, this is a short-term measure until operating reserve caps get put into place. And I'm very confident that the education minister will continue to respect the autonomy of elected school board officials. However, again, this, I believe, will result in improved coordination and it will help ensure that resources get into classrooms and result in better outcomes for Alberta students.
What is the cap going to be?
Sorry?
The cap.
I don't have that information at this point in time. The cap will be coming in effective September 1st, 2021, and this measure just gets us from basically September 1st, 2020 until August 31st, 2021.
What would you feel a reasonable cap should be?
I'm not prepared to answer that. Obviously, there'll be a number of considerations in terms of what appropriate cap levels will be. Ultimately, this measure and really the education funding model, everything is designed to ensure that maximum resources get into classrooms and that we're ensuring that Alberta children receive the best education possible.
So you must have concerns with how much they're squirreling away because you're putting a cap on it.
Well, there's a general principle. We believe it's important that In a general sense, education funding today should go into classrooms and support the education of today's students. And so that's a principle that would inform this measure. But again, this will really improve coordination, communication, eliminate surprises, and result in more resources into the classroom.
How does this reduce red tape? Like the cap, or the requiring school boards to report, or ask permission for spending money out of reserves? How does that reduce red tape?
Sure. I mean, quite frankly, I don't believe it's going to create an onerous obligation in terms of paperwork and a time requirement. Again, I believe it can actually reduce red tape by improving coordination and eliminating surprises. I think anytime there can be great communication, overall coordination, it results in better outcomes.
When you say eliminate surprises, what surprises are we eliminating here?
Well, as you know, we report school board spending on the provincial financial statement and on a consolidated basis. And so ultimately, any spending that comes out of school reserves, board reserves, will ultimately get reported on the province's financial statements. And so again, if there is a high level coordination and oversight over the spending and transferring from reserves and spending from those reserves, that simply will result in fewer surprises to the province's financial statements.
Surprises to you guys, so it makes your bottom line look better if you know. I'm going to play maybe a game here, but boy, you need permission to spend that funding reserve. Please don't spend that $7 million because we're going to get $7 million larger on our deficit. I mean, that's how it could be perceived when you're saying eliminate surprises on your bottom line.
Effectively, ultimately, this results in, again, improved coordination at all levels. So we have every interest in ensuring that school board funding, provincial funding to school boards gets into the classroom. That's really job number one. Quite frankly, reserves have been quite high historically, and they've been coming down in time. But this measure, again, will improve coordination at several levels and improve transparency.
So this bill makes you the new point guy then on teacher bargaining? Is that a fair way to?
Bargaining with teachers moves from education to Treasury Board and Finance.
You said before with other public sector workers, there's no money budgeted for salary hikes. Is there any money for salary hikes for teachers in this budget, and will you be asking for zeros?
Well, I'll just, I'm certainly not going to start the bargaining process today, but I've been very clear, and our position hasn't changed, that in Budget 2020, there is no provision for increased remuneration levels across the board.
How do you justify in the agreement process to get rid of the need to ask the school board within TIBA, the 61 school boards, to agree to the proposed agreement? You're getting rid of this to give your government the power to ratify this?
Well, we're changing the structure actually to better align with other provincial structures across the country with respect to teacher bargaining. I believe it's going to really improve the outcome, streamline the bargaining process. It will actually, I believe, put the communication in the right order. The 61 school boards through the 61-member TIBA committee will be proactively informing the board itself in terms of their goals, the required outcomes, and I believe that's a better process, a better sequence than the opposite. And ultimately, then the board will negotiate and have the responsibility for ratification. But I believe this improves coordination, again, improves the sequencing, and will result in a more streamlined, more efficient process, and in that way, I think a better outcome. I believe it's going to serve all parties a better.
On the issue of bargaining, you get in talks with teachers and they want a certain percentage increase, and you're saying there's no money at all. And not only what happens if you're both set in your own positions, you're not changing at all, it goes to arbitration. And we've seen before, the arbitrators sometimes do give increases. So is that we actually headed then to arbitration if you can't work out your differences, or is there a way of getting around that?
Listen, I'm not going to look down the road at the outcomes. We've been very clear that there is no provision for wage increases. We're making changes now to the structure, the bargaining structure, to, I believe, which will result in a more efficient process for school boards. and the government. And again, in terms of the actual bargaining itself, we'll save that process for when it begins.
And just to follow up, there was some sort of hints we saw last year that the government could use legislation to enact wages. Is that something you're looking at?
Listen, that is way outside the scope of this budget implementation bill at this point in time. We're hopeful. We're hopeful with every one of our public sector partner unions that we can all take a look at the current fiscal situation in the province, the current economic realities, and ultimately come to a good agreement on a path forward that serves, again, provincial taxpayers well, public servants well, and results in a sustainable public service and public services into the future. So that's our starting point, and that's our objective.
We have someone waiting on the line, so we'll just jump there and then we'll come back in the room. Catherine, I can see you have a question. So operator, can you please put through our first question on the phones?
Yeah, questions from Don Braid with the Calgary Herald. Don, your line's open.
Sir, to advanced education, the McKinnon report says, as everyone knew, I guess, there are 26 universities in the province, post-secondaries that is. Are you happy with that? Are you happy with the overall governance model? Are you looking for a larger governance model for the province, for universities, amalgamations, perhaps the union of some campuses, or even a provincial governance model?
Well, you know, that would be a good question for the Advanced Education Minister, Minister Nicolaides. Included in this bill is simply the framework for a new funding model, and a funding model that I believe will serve post-secondary institutions well, and certainly the province well, and ultimately, most importantly, our future students in this province well.
Well, you have a governance review going on now, right, of the whole system?
Well, again, quite frankly, I think it's important to take a fulsome view of every department and every program that's delivered by this government. And our Advanced Education Minister is taking that approach. I applaud him for that. But again, relative to this budget implementation bill, today we're talking about ensuring that we have the framework for a new funding model, again, a model that I believe can serve Albertans very well.
Okay, Catherine, you had a question?
Yeah, so in previous budgets, the Campus Alberta grant was laid out by individual institutions. It's not in Budget 2020, and I was told that individual institutions' funding allocations are not going to be made public, so why not?
Well, again, our Advanced Education Minister and Ministry is working with individual post-secondary institutions on an ongoing basis right now during this transition time, and more details will become available as decisions are made. But you know, you've appropriately pointed out that fact in Budget 2020. Again, we're staying with our fiscal plan in terms of funding levels for post-secondary institutions broadly, and so Budget 2020 is really just year 2 in the 4-year fiscal plan. And again, our overall plan is to slowly reduce reliance on provincial government funding within our post-secondary institution system, advanced education system. We will be encouraging post-secondary institutions to be entrepreneurial, to take advantage of opportunities that they've had in the past and will have in the future, to raise own source revenues and to really strengthen the institutions as a whole.
But if this is about accountability to the taxpayer, why not be transparent? Why not say this is what each institution gets?
Again, we're in a transition period right now as we transition into the new funding formula, and details will be made public as decisions are made.
But their budgets this year would be set, right? That new funding formula doesn't start until 2021. So why not give us the numbers for this year? Like, I get that we're transitioning, but we're not transitioning yet. Okay. Sure. Well,
I mean, we really are at a point of transition heading into the new year. And so again, as decisions are made, I'm confident the Advanced Education Minister will make those details available. He is working closely with every post-secondary institution at this point in time to determine the best path forward for each university and college.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much.